Welcome to the second devlog for my survival hack and slash game, Grimgale. In this episode of the devlog, I want to talk about something that I found surprisingly fascinating during development: sound design. Audio in games is something really special in my opinion. It can elevate a project from something flat and static to something that feels impactful, immersive and full of life. I actually started focusing on sound design because I just couldn't make the player's attacks feel right. No matter how many particle effects I threw onto the screen, it just wasn't communicating to the player that their attacks were actually doing damage. So I thought, maybe the enemies need some sounds. If enemies grunted or reacted when getting hit, maybe that would give the player's attacks the weight they were missing. Sounds simple enough, right? But there was one big problem. Where was I actually going to get these sound effects from? And this is where I found myself at a crossroads in my project. Either option A, go to one of the hundreds of websites that provide free and paid sound libraries and download everything I could possibly need. Simple and easy. Or option B, reject the idea of using commonly available sound effects and try creating something more unique. Yes, it would take way more effort. I'd have to record, edit and integrate all these sound effects into something that actually fit the game. But I felt like it would be worth it if it meant creating a game that was truly made by me. Now, game development is huge. You've got animation, 3D modeling, coding, music, world building, gameplay design, and about 1,000 other things. Sometimes it's just impossible for one person to do absolutely everything. As much as I would love to make every single aspect of this game myself, I'd also like to release it sometime within my lifetime. So because of that, there are still parts of the project that weren't created entirely by me. I think if you really want to make progress in your project, you need to accept that not everything is going to be perfect. And you're going to have to make use of those juicy, mixable animations. Honestly, I think that's okay.
No, 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 no!
Max Mofo. So, after deciding to take on the challenge of creating my own sound effects, I went out and bought a microphone. And with that, my house officially transformed into a very, very low budget recording studio. Honestly, sound design has quickly become one of my favorite parts of game development. The coolest part is that everything can now be a sound effect. A cup isn't just a cup anymore, it's potentially the perfect sound for a magical key. And yeah, it's a really refreshing break from the usual game development grind. Instead of fighting with Godot and getting frustrated at my terrible art skills, I get to run around my house hitting random objects together in the name of game development. But, sadly, a game can't exist of nothing but sound. So, back to the game dev grindstone I go. Forgotten Church of Saint Celine. With this map, I wanted to create everything that the first one wasn't. I wanted it to feel really atmospheric. The first map ended up feeling very flat and empty. It always seemed like it was missing something, and I didn't want that same feeling carrying over into this new area. This time, I wanted the environment itself to tell a story. A strange church sits perched on the edge of a massive cliff. It's clear that ceremonies were once held here. But whatever traditions and beliefs these people followed have long been lost to time. As always, I started this process in Blender. Once the layout was finished, I added textures and exported everything into Godot. With the environment in place, I moved on to the less exciting but very necessary work, setting up collision boxes and generating a nav mesh. This is where things got interesting. For some reason, I just could not get Godot to generate a proper nav mesh for the terrain. Whenever I baked a new nav mesh, everything looked perfect. that avoided obstacles correctly and covered all the walkable areas exactly as it should. But as soon as I tested it in game, the enemies would just get stuck. I was completely stuck on the problem for days. At first I assumed the issue was with my enemy AI, and after a lot of debugging, I eventually realized that the nav mesh itself had to be the culprit. Eventually I came up with a rather painful workaround. I created an entirely new mesh in Blender that replicated only the walkable areas of the map. Then I manually cut around every obstacle and imported this custom nav mesh into Godot. It definitely worked, but I have a feeling this problem comes down to my own lack of experience rather than an actual engine issue. If any of you know a lot about nav mesh generation in Godot, I genuinely appreciate any suggestions you might have in the comments. Thankfully, after this slightly ridiculous workaround, I finally had functioning enemy AI. And you know what they say, what the player doesn't know won't hurt them. With that hurdle out of the way, I focused on polishing the atmosphere of the level by adding a few final touches. Rain effects, fog adjustments, some waterfalls. And with that, the forgotten church of Saint Celine is complete. A mysterious church hidden among the mountains, standing alone at the edge of a cliff, quietly guarding the secrets of a long forgotten past. And that's that. Thanks for watching this far. I don't have much to show you in this video, and I hope to make a bit more progress in the coming months. So, until next time, bye!